to Circuit of the Americas. It is time for King of the Baggers, Mission King of the Baggers, I should say, in their second qualifying session, part of Superbikes at Texas in this penultimate round of the 10th anniversary season of the MotoAmerica Championship. There is Hayden Gillum, our reigning and defending champion here in the Mission King of the Baggers category. You can see him clenching his hand there. He did have an injury after a crash back in the last round at Mid-Ohio. He's getting ready for his final attempt to find some pace here before we get ready for racing later on this afternoon. Speaking of Mid-Ohio, Roger Hayden, let's take a look back at race number 1.
Yeah, race 1 back at Mid-Ohio. The races were getting important as this championship winds down toward the end of the year. See there, Kyle Wyman with a really good start there on pole position, was showing a lot of speed all weekend, but it was Troy Herfoss was able to lead him out of turn 1. First couple laps, Tyler O'Hara also a great start there in third. See the Harley boys making a move early. James Rispoli was trying to make a move on Tyler O'Hara and finally made it down into turn 1. You see Rocco Landers and Hayden Gillum also. These 4 guys were having a huge battle for that last podium spot. Rispoli was holding it right here. A little mistake by Tyler O'Hara getting into the chicane. But watch this pass by Kyle Wyman. Makes a move on the inside, but drifts a little bit wide. Troy's able to do the cutback, make the pass, and from there he was able to put a couple clean laps in. You see him looking back there, realizes he has a couple seconds of a lead, able to wheelie over the finish line and get the win, and Kyle Wyman there second.
Yeah, they said afterwards, Troy Herfoss said that he was able to just ride his own race. Kyle Wyman admitted to making a couple of mistakes, had to clean it up before race number 2. After that race, these are the championship point standings as we come into this weekend. Kyle Wyman with a 14-point advantage over Troy Herfoss. Hayden Gillum with that number 1 plate, 93 points back. It's going to come down to the wire for Mission King of the Baggers. 4 races remaining. Let's get down to Michael Hill.
Yeah, so bikes on track then for this 15-minute final qualifying session. Then, of course, we've got the challenge as well. Any one of 5 or 6 riders could win this, but we saw yesterday a big step from Rocco Landers, didn't we? Taking that first provisional pole position for him on the Mission King of the Baggers. He's had a few podiums this year. That elusive first win for Rocco certainly is going to be coming, we hope, this weekend for him. And of course, he's double dutying this weekend. He can also win his second Twins Cup championship as well. But Roger, from struggling at the start of the season, Rocco now really has become one of the contenders in this championship. And it would be nice to see him end the season on a high, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. He doesn't even look like the same rider that started the year on that Baggers. Really figured it out, and once we went to Brainerd, he started working his way closer and closer to the leaders, and now he's leading sessions. He's getting on the podium, but it's going to be interesting this weekend to see if he can turn this weekend that he's having in to fighting with Kyle Wyman and Troy Herfoss. We haven't seen that yet in a race. He has showed the speed. He's right there, and I think this weekend could be the weekend that he does it.
For Rocco, over the course of the season, he's been on the podium 5 times, but 4 of them have been in the last 4 races. You talk about leading sessions. He led practice yesterday morning. He led that first qualifying session yesterday, so we'll see if he can hold on to it here in this 15-minute session. But for Rocco, that steady progression that he's made, he really gave a lot of credit to the team and all of the work that they've put into getting him more comfortable on that big bike.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, is just getting him comfortable and finding the limit. That's the hard part. I mean, he's one of the guys, he's never rode anything like a bagger, and have to figure out where the limit and the confidence on the brakes and trail braking.
See the number 33, the factory Harley-Davidson rider. This is Kyle Wyman, our championship point leader. He's had 6 wins this season, 11 podium finishes. Mission King of the Baggers, they've already raced here at Circuit of the Americas this season. They were here back in April for the MotoGP weekend, so they already have a little bit of experience on this racetrack. Kyle Wyman won the second of those 2 races. Troy Herfoss, he's battling in the championship point standings, won the first of those races here. You see Troy Herfoss there on the number 17. He's had 5 wins this season, 11 podium finishes for himself. He's the chaser right now, and he said it in our preview show over on MotoAmerica Live Plus yesterday morning that when he came over to race in America this year and being in 2 different classes in the MotoAmerica Championship, he knew he was going for race wins. That's always the goal, but for him to be battling for titles, he didn't know if that was going to be on the table early on.
Yeah, and he showed, especially on the bagger, he showed speed right away from the very first race. And we go back to that first qualifier yesterday afternoon. He was leading and then had a bike issue and wasn't able to get back out. those last 6 minutes. So I'm not sure if we really seen what Troy could have did when he went back out. But to come here and another guy riding a bike that's totally new to him and tracks, there's a lot to take on, and man, he's figured it out really quick.
The pole time from yesterday set by Rocco Landers is a 2:14.779, but Troy Herfoss on that first flying lap was a 2:14.341. So Troy Herfoss very early in this qualifying session putting himself on that provisional pole.
Yeah, and that's a great lap. You got to think that even as this session goes on, it's going to get even quicker, and didn't get to get out in that first qualifier yesterday afternoon, but man, from the very first lap, able to do that lap time. We've talked a lot this morning about the track temperature being down, a little bit cooler this morning, and cloud cover, and the lap times are really starting to show for it.
Not only is that a provisional pole time, if you weren't with us yesterday, we also are resetting track records in multiple categories. And for Troy Herfoss, that 2:14.341 early on in this session, that is a new track record here in Mission King of the Baggers.
Yeah, and really, you think about the guy he's fighting for the title with Kyle Wyman. He struggled a little bit yesterday from where we normally see Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle was down in 5th at the end of qualifying.
And outside the top 5 a lot. And, usually we see Kyle always inside the top 3. So this is a big session, I think, for Kyle.
It's also a big session for James Rispoli here on the number 43. Had a little bit of an issue yesterday. When you look at the results afterwards, he was rounding out the second row. He was down in 6th.
Yep, had that crash, was able to get back out inside the top 6, so misses a little bit of track time. But man, you think about this session, as long as this lap is 2 minutes 15 seconds of a lap, 15-minute session, these guys are not going to get very many laps in this session.
No, these sessions go by really, really quick, and following this is the Mission King of the Baggers Challenge. It will be a 2-lap race for the top 6 when we combine the qualifying effort. So if you're outside of the top 6 at the end of the next 8 minutes, you're not going to get to go for that $5,000. And you also don't get the practice start for the racing this afternoon, and you don't get those extra 2 laps.
Yeah, that's huge, and you're going to get to see, if you haven't been out with anybody yet, when you get out in the race, that's your opportunity to see where someone might be a little bit better than you going into the first race this afternoon.
Here's Tyler O'Hara on that number 29. The S&S Indian Motorcycle teammate of Troy Herfoss.
He goes quicker than he went yesterday. Yesterday, his best lap time was a 2:15.2, and he's about a half a second quicker than that.
There is Troy Herfoss pulling into pit lane right now. 7 minutes, just over 7.5 minutes left in this qualifying session. He is our provisional pole sitter with a new lap record, but you see the number 97, that's Rocco Landers. He was on the provisional pole after the first qualifying session yesterday, and while he's on a good lap, Roger, it's still above that pole time.
Yeah, and you can see Rocco's pushing. He's really, bike's moving around a lot. Losing a little bit in that second and third sector. You can see they're his personal best, but if he wants to get down where Troy's at in those low 2:14, he's going to pick up a little speed through there.
Only 2 riders in the 2:14 range in this second qualifying session are those 2 Indian riders of Troy Herfoss and Tyler O'Hara. So the rest of the field, with just 7 minutes remaining, trying to get a little bit closer. Those 2 together have a second and a half over the rest of the field.
Yeah, and that's a big. We haven't seen that. We see now Rocco does his best lap. Not as quick as he went yesterday, so we'll see. But Bobby Fong, huge improvement from yesterday. Yesterday he was 8th with a 2:18.5, and now up there, really good lap at a 2:15.8.
That's a big overnight improvement for that whole team. Bobby Fong, we just saw him come off of the racetrack in the Steel Commander Superbike category, and he hasn't done all of the races this year in Mission King of the Baggers. This team has had a couple of issues to start the season off. They hit the reset button and had little nuances here and there, but they continue to come out, and every time that Bobby's able to consistently be on the racetrack, they're always quick.
Always quick, and it's just able to find that consistency through the practice and the sessions, and finishing the sessions has kind of been hard. The team reset, and also they let Bobby kind of focus on that Superbike title as well, but now he's back this weekend.
Watching the number 33, this is Kyle Wyman. You can see through the first 2 sectors He went red, meaning he was better than everyone else out on the racetrack. That would also put him below that pole time that Troy Herfoss set. Troy Herfoss, we can see, is now left pit lane, so he's back out there to see if he can find any improvement. But Kyle Wyman, this is a big step up.
Huge step, and we mentioned this yesterday. Kyle always figures it out when it counts. He can be a little bit off, and then Saturday morning when we get ready to go racing, the 33's there, you see a huge mistake there. Really on the edge of the tire out of there trying to get good grip, but you can see that's where he lost a little bit of time. But for Kyle, this is huge, and you know, the good guys like Kyle, they always figure it out.
You can see the effect that little mistake had on that lap time. He was below that pole time, and then with just that, as he crossed over, we'll take a look at that moment that he just had. It put him 0.2 of a second above it.
Yeah, to see the lean angle he has out at turn 16, and he's trying to get a good run out of there. And luckily, Kyle's as talented as he is and able to save it, but look at him, he puts his head down right away and just gets trying to continue that lap.
And Kyle Wyman able to dip into the 214s even with that mistake. It was a 214.9 for him, putting him up there on the front row with the number 17 and 29, but there's still 4.5 minutes left, and he can find some improvement as Rocco Landers now knocks him off of the front row, dipping himself into the 214s. He's not as quick as he was yesterday. Yesterday it was a 214.7. But his best lap right there was a 214.8.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe they made some changes overnight, and Rocco might not be as comfortable as he was yesterday, but he's close, and it was going to be interesting to see if he could respond. But for Rocco, this is still a great showing for him so far this weekend. Even though he led yesterday, third today, but his lap times are so close. And you know, the important thing for Rocco is he's doing these lap times by himself. He's not out there following someone.
See James Rispoli able to go a 2:15.1 here in this session. Talks about the moment that he had yesterday and able to keep riding and find some improvement overnight as well. He's up inside of the top 6. Let's go ahead and get down to Michael Hill.
Well, one rider that we do not see on track is Corey West, and we're looking at James Rispoli just coming up towards the end of this lap. But Corey West is not on track. I just spoke to one representative from the Saddleman team and said, hey, what's wrong with Corey? Is there a problem? No problem. He is saving himself for the Hooligans race. Of course, he's in that championship fight, not wanting to risk anything, and that is the reason he's not on track. I mean, it kind of makes sense, I guess, but yeah, we don't see him on track. He is going to be going full gas, full attack on the Hooligans.
Another rider that we hadn't seen post a time yet is Hayden Gillum. We saw him getting ready early on in the session, but you can see the graphic at the bottom of the screen. He's now out there, and with only just over 2.5 minutes in the session, going to put up a time. It's going to put him up there towards the front. 0.7 of a second off the pace right now, Roger, but just he needs the laps.
Yeah, and I think he's another guy that's kind of trying to save himself after the crash in Mid-Ohio and having that operation on his hand. We've seen him before the session, and he was really in a lot of pain, so maybe they wanted to set out a few laps because he's also going to be going out in the challenge most likely right after this session.
Yeah, with that time that Hayden Gillum put in, he did put himself there up inside of the top 6. We see James Rispoli picking his bike up after another moment here in the second qualifying session.
It's pretty impressive to be able to pick that thing up like that on the side of a hill as well.
Yeah, you could see him as he got that bike up, how heavy it is, and trying to hold it up there as he was on that incline.
Up into turn 1, hard on the brakes through there. You can see it. Just the rear end comes around, almost like the crash at Mid-Ohio into that last corner. The rear end just comes right around on him.
Yeah, very similar. You could see some parts and pieces coming off of that bike as well. On the right-hand side of your screen, Troy Herfoss. He has gone red through the first 3 sectors as he finishes out this lap. A 2:13.709 for Troy Herfoss, bettering the gap to the rest of the field by over a second with a new track record. This championship is anything but over, Roger.
Yeah, and Rocco right now, he's on a good lap as well. See Rispoli there trying to get back to pits. Not going to be able to get back or do another lap for James, but James has showed some improvement from yesterday.
All right, here is Rocco Landers. He is on a lap right now, but unfortunately the red flag has come out. You can see the frustration for Rocco Landers. He knew he was on an improving lap, and with that red flag, not going to be able to finish it out. Being told now that it is Max Flinders that has brought out this red flag condition here in the second qualifying session for Mission King of the Baggers.
I think Rocco also got in that turn 12 a little bit deep as well. Not only the red flag, but I think he was trying to put that good lap in after yesterday, and you can see the disappointment on Rocco. He's got something to prove this week, and it's really cool to see him out there wanting to lead the sessions and all that. And I think Rocco's got to be feeling pretty good going into that race and the Mission Challenge.
When you look at the way it stacks up right now for the starting grid, Tyler O'Hara, you saw him there celebrating on pit lane after he got off of the bike. Yesterday, he had an instant 360 camera aboard that King of the Bagger.
Yeah, and it's just watching this, you can just see how fast through this first sector, with how heavy these bikes are, as fast as they're able to change directions through here with the weight, the way these bikes handle now. Look at Tyler O'Hara, just right, left. These guys are talking about how physical this first part of this track is, and not only the change in directions, but the speed through there makes it just as hard. And then after here, you can see they'll start to slow down a little bit as this track starts to tighten up a little bit. You're still changing directions here, but it's a quick left up over this little rise here, down into the left, and then it's hard braking into this next left-hander, and it's really hard not to outbrake yourself into this corner. But it's such important to get a good drive, because you'll see how long this straightaway is, and it starts with the drive. You get a good drive, you start carrying your momentum from all the way down this straightaway. See some riders move all the way to the left, and then they'll come back to the right, get ready for braking down into turn 12.
I love the instant 360 angles and the way you can control and move the camera around and really get a sense of what the rider is doing, the body positioning, the way they're able to control the bikes, but also just the track itself and all of the nuances that you don't see when you're just watching it from a TV screen.
Yeah, and that's when we talk about changing directions or corners a little bit slower, you know, when you see here like really how far they get slowed down right here, you're able to see really how slow it is. And then as we go into this next right-hander, 17, 18, we talk about how long it is, how long they're on the edge of the tire, and this shot really gives you the opportunity to see that.
As this lap is being completed, we have been told now that this second qualifying session has been called complete by race control. So as they stack up is the way we will take them to the grid later on this afternoon for the first race of the weekend for Mission King of the Baggers. We were under that red flag. I mentioned that it was Max Flinders. Good news as we see the safety workers over with him, and he is able to get up and start moving around a bit, and he can go back and make his way over to his team.
Yeah, and it looks like on the exit of turn 10, and that is that's a place that's really fast and not one of those places you really want to step off of it. So it's great to see Max up and okay and walking gingerly, but at least he's walking.
Yeah, at least he is in motion now, speaking with the EMS team here at Circuit of the Americas. So they'll do a full evaluation, make sure he is okay and fit to race later on this afternoon. But with the session now complete, we can take a look at the combined qualifying results mixed with yesterday. And it will be Troy Herfoss leading us to racing later on this afternoon. That new track record at 2:13.7. You can see his teammate Tyler O'Hara over a second off of the pace there, and Rocco Landers rounding out the front row.
And then Hayden Gillum, Kyle Wyman, James Spoley, last guy to make the challenge, and Bobby Fong, Max Flinders, Jake Lewis, and Travis Wyman.
Yep, those top six will now have a few moments to rest and get themselves ready with their teams before we get ready for the Mission King of the Baggers Challenge race that will be next up out on the racetrack. But before we get to that, let's take a look at some of these highlights from this second qualifying session. We'll start off with third place. This was Rocco Landers. When we get to it, that will be on that front row. Here he is, Roger.
Yeah, and it's been an impressive weekend so far for Rocco, and been there at the front and leading sessions. And you could see the disappointment. He wanted to end up on that top spot this morning, but he did what he needed to do. He has himself in the front row, and let's see if he can get a good start and challenge for a win in the challenge or race 1 this afternoon.
See the number 29, Tyler O'Hara. We saw him celebrating. He was excited. It's going to be a 1-2 start for the SNS Indian Motorcycle Team.
Yeah, and this is one of Tyler's best qualifiers in the last couple rounds. So he wants to help his teammate, and the way to do that, get yourself up there on the front row and be there in those opening laps. But, you know, the guy to beat, Troy Herfoss, his teammate, showed a lot of speed all weekend. You know, he wants to fight for that title, knows he needs to get some wins, and he's showing this weekend he's going to be tough to beat.
He said it on the preview show yesterday morning that one of the things that he was looking forward to in the last 2 races of the season were the gloves coming off between himself and Travis Wyman. With that, let's get back down to pit lane and Michael Hill.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Good news that Max Flinders is up on his feet, and that is good news. So obviously, he's not going to be out in the challenge. He never made it into the top 6. The fastest rider, of course, that will take pole position, both for the challenge and, of course, for the main races later on, is Troy Herfoss. Tyler O'Hara also in the top 3, middle of the front row, and, of course, Rocco Landers just finishing there in that 3rd position. The other riders making it through, the 33, the number 1, and the 43. Just behind me, these are the Indian teams. Let's see if we can get a quick word with a couple of the guys that are going to make it through into the challenge. And Tyler, I don't know if we can get a quick word with you. Obviously, the first job is getting it into the top 6. You've done that front row of the grid for the challenge. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's so good to be back here at COTA and be out here at this beautiful raceway. My SNS cycle team have prepped an amazing Indian Challenger. Feels great to be on the front row. Troy just set a blistering lap. It was amazing, and just keep chipping away. The bike just keeps getting better and better, and we got a job to do this weekend. We're out here to get it on and have some fun.
Obviously, you mentioned that lap time from Troy, 1 second clear of everybody. Obviously, he had a clear lap. Racing is very, very different. We've seen throughout the season when the lights go out and we get into the challenge particularly, it's elbows out, it's gloves off, it's saddlebags on the floor. I mean, you guys are hauling. Yeah,
you know, when there's mission food, dash for cash, and everything goes out the window, and you go for that dash win, and we put on a show for these fans.
Excellent. We're going to let you get ready then, thanks to Tyler. Tyler, then we'll start, as I said, from the middle of the front row. If you are new to MotoAmerica, if you've never seen Mission King of the Baggers before, this is a race not for points. This is a race for cash. It doesn't change the grid positions later on or anything like that. It is just a 2-lap sprint, $5,000 on the line. One of the riders then that will make it through is James Rispoli. Just trying to see where James is. He's just down here talking to his rider coach. That's, in fact, Jason Pridmore. Former champion, of course, just backing himself from riding in World Endurance. And James Rispoli, a couple of spills this weekend, but still fast enough to make it through into the shootout. Just on his left down here also is Kyle Wyman, no stranger to winning the Mission Challenge races, no stranger to winning championships as well. He is down here. Also down here is Rocco Landers, and as I said, I was going to try and speak to as many riders as possible, but Kyle in the zone, and of course James just talking to James Rispoli down here. Hayden Gillam didn't go out too early in that session. And you can see down here, I don't know, Steve, if you can just get in here, he's got some ice on his wrist. And, of course, he did go down yesterday in the Superbike session. And I wonder if that was maybe one of the reasons, just talking to his wife, Summer. So I'm not going to go and interrupt that, of course. Last few minutes of conversation before these riders go out. And like I said, when we do these little walk and talks, I get a lot of comments sometimes. They could just go in and ask the question, but you've got to know when you can go in and ask a question. And with Hayden there just talking to Summer, I'm going to leave them just to talk. Rocco Landers down here, you could just for a quick word with us. Rocco, all smiles, and as well you should be. It's been a great weekend for you so far. Still on the front row of the grid. Dash for cash, $5,000 on the line. What do you reckon?
Definitely a little frustrated. I'm pretty bummed to see Max go down. He's one of my good friends. It looks like a big one, but it's good to see he's up. I think I could have had a little more pace. I don't know if I would have caught Troy with the time we had left, but I mean, see if we can just get a good start, because start's very important in such a short race, and see if we can keep it going.
Okay, we'll let you get ready. As I said, we don't have very long. As I said, this is going to be a 2-lap sprint race, $5,000 for the winner of this race. And then, of course, we'll be talking to the rider that does win this challenge on the podium. I'm going to get myself into a vantage point to watch this one. If you've never seen Mission King of the Baggers, don't go anywhere. It's the challenge right after this short break.
Get ready to eat like a king with Mission Foods. Load up those saddlebags for Mission King of the Baggers Racing and feed your need for flavor. Fully loaded tacos, fast wraps, piled high nachos. Whatever you crave, Mission will help you be race ready.